So I remember telling him that, I'm just starting out and there's no way I can go home because there's no way I can afford to go home and do what I want to do that's in my heart for my
Right.
family, because then I know they're going to
Yep.
love me. And he said, no, don't worry about it. So I had money for plane tickets. And he says, you keep your money, he says, and buy them gifts. He says, I'll get your plane ticket. And I said, why would you do something like that? And he said, because I have a daughter too. And I know that your parents would want you home for the holidays. So with that, he says, I'm going to go get the money and then I'll be back. And he was coming back to my job, but he never came
Okay.
back. I left work that day, and that's where my life took a sudden turn. And he was outside of my job, and he tooted the horn because him and I never went out on a date, and I didn't even know what kind of car
Okay.
he drove. So he beeped the horn, and I walked across the street, and he said, here's the money. And next thing you know, I was surrounded by
Oh
police,
man.
and I was being arrested.
Okay.
And I was hauled off, and I was booked, and I don't know whatever happened to the other guy. I heard in the police record that he turned out to be what they call the pimp at the time, which you would never know, considering his appearance and his whole
Mm-hmm.
personality. And and so I couldn't call anybody. I I couldn't call anybody. I didn't know who to call. I was never going to call my family up. And later that night, somebody came to get me. And it was so strange, even till today, because they said that your boss has his friend here to pick you up. And I said, but my boss, how does my boss know I'm
Right.
here? I didn't call anybody. And so his friend, but you know, at that time, I wanted out. I was terrified. So I figured, okay, somehow my boss found out and he had his friend come get me. And his friend came to get me. And he said, John had me pick you up. He said, you're going to be okay. He goes, we're just going to stop at my house. And I didn't care. I wasn't thinking. I just felt like
Yeah.
safe. Somebody's rescuing, somebody cares. Little did I know, when this guy brought me by his house, that
Oh
was it.
no.
He took the key and threw it away. I never knew who that guy was, except that he was supposed to have been a friend of my boss that was there to help
Right.
me. So now this is the second person who turned out not to be helping
Right.
me. And so it was quite a while. He told me that I had to do things, otherwise I wasn't going to go anywhere, and that he had to pay for
Okay.
me. And I even tried with the police records and all to try to find out who this person was. I know whoever it was, they paid $200 to get me out. And from there, I remember one day I escaped from there, and it led me to three other
Mm.
traffickers. And so when I came to my truth in 2006, my whole life changed. I I knew biggest one of my biggest goals was to continue with my recovery. And it's not that I have arrived or I'm healed. I
The
can't
process.
say to you,
Yeah.
okay, I'm healed now. I am not healed. I am in the process. Every day I'm
Right.
healing. There's no narrow road. I work with the New Jersey Coalition Against Human Trafficking, and their consultant, their speaker. I go all over in the state, out of the state. I speak to schools and educate. I speak to legislators. We just had a bill passed in the state of New Jersey bringing education into the
Yeah.
schools after giving my testimony along with some
Oh, good
others.
job.
And I do in services in hospitals, and I teach the hospitals on the red flags and indicators along with sharing my
Right.
story. I go to communities, and it's just been a whole different world. I just feel that for me, it's been like the Lord has taken something so ugly, ashes, and just turned it into for his glory and beauty, and just to be able to bring awareness and educate and bring hope to other people that I didn't have. But looking back now, I feel that everything happened for a reason, that it did happen, and he took me through this. And then with that is where I met Teresa Flores, and I went on her retreats, which was also a process of growing and
Yeah.
healing. And I met other survivors. I I have to say, my faith has been so
Mm.
restored because I had really no faith or personal relationship before this. One of the things I wanted was to meet one survivor. I said, just one survivor I want to meet. I have met countless survivors, not only in New Jersey, but throughout all the
Yeah.
states that have become sisters, that have just been just amazing human beings. And the New Jersey Coalition, they've been doing amazing things. We've been working with Unitas. They teach about human trafficking. They go into schools and they make it age appropriate. And there's just been ongoing things
Mm.
happening. One of my other concerns is bringing education into the private schools because obviously this isn't going to apply to the private schools, and I feel they need it just as
Yes.
much, if
Yep.
not more. I feel that parents need to have conversation at home with their kids. Your kids are never too young to learn, but a lot of parents say, well, what can teachers do more? What can the legislation do? What can communities do? What could healthcare do? What can law enforcement do? And my answer is, what can you do? What can your parents do? I mean, it starts at home. I mean, parents need to love on their kids. You know, brothers and sisters need to love on their siblings, and everything starts at home where you're formed. You need to have these conversations, you need to love each other unconditionally, and you need to have conversations about these real life subjects that's really going out there, because when the kids go out there, if you're unaware and uninformed, you're putting your kids at risk. So it's, yeah, what can the law enforcement and healthcare and everyone do, the teachers after the fact? But what are you doing to prepare your kids to have them armed and educated and aware in the
Yeah,
meantime? So that's
it
important.
is. You know, Gina, if a mother was listening to this, or a father for that matter, he's got a 12, 13-year-old daughter, and they don't know how to have the conversation. It's not something they have enough knowledge about to really speak well. Is there a simple message you would want those girls to hear from the parents?
Definitely. You want to make, there's one word, safe. Make your kids feel safe. Just like police. Police need to make people feel
Yeah.
safe. I don't believe what happened to me means that all cops are bad cops. I don't believe that at all. I believe there's good and bad to everything and everybody. But people that are victims, people need to feel safe. They need to know that they can go to somebody and talk about these subjects. So if a boy or a girl is struggling and they're afraid to go home with to their father or mother or their aunt or uncle or whoever it is, they're not going to go to them. They're going to go to a stranger. They're going to hear about this from a stranger. And you're not going to want them to hear about it from a
Right.
stranger, because that stranger could be the very person that's trying to lure them in. And I would say to the parents, there's plenty of material out there they can contact. There's so many organizations out there. There's hotlines they can call for materials, and we can provide it to them even through the New Jersey Coalition of Human Trafficking. We can provide materials for them even through another
Mm-hmm.
state and refer them over. But there's great books out there to make kids feel safe. You could start talking to your kids at a very young age, and then as they grow older, you can prepare them for more adult conversations. But if they don't hear it at home, they're going to hear it from the wrong
Right.
people.
Agreed. Thank you for that.